Spain did not fall into civil war overnight. It slid into it, slowly, quietly, almost inevitably. By the early 20th century, Spain was a nation carrying the weight of a lost empire, deep poverty, rigid traditions, and a political system that satisfied almost no one. On the surface, Spain appeared stable. Beneath it, Spanish society was fractured along fault lines that had been widening for generations. Urban workers demanded better wages and political power. Rural peasants lived in near-feudal conditions on land owned by a small elite. The Catholic Church remained one of the most powerful institutions in the country, deeply intertwined with education, morality, and politics. The army saw itself as the guardian of national honor. Monarchists clung to tradition. Socialists, anarchists, and Republicans dreamed of radical change. Everyone believed Spain needed saving. They just disagreed on what Spain should become. In 1923, General Miguel Primo de Rivera attempted to impose order through dictatorship, seizing power with the blessing of King Alfonso XIII. His regime promised stability, modernization, and national renewal. Instead, it alienated nearly everyone. When Primo de Rivera's dictatorship collapsed in 1930, it took the monarchy's credibility down with it. In April 1931, municipal elections revealed overwhelming urban support for Republican candidates. King Alfonso fled into exile. Spain declared itself a republic. The Second Spanish Republic was born in hope and immediately surrounded by enemies. The new government moved quickly. It reduced the power of the church, cut the size of the army, promised land reform, expanded workers' rights, legalized divorce, opened schools, granted regional autonomy to Catalonia. To supporters, this was progress. To conservatives, it felt like an assault on the soul of Spain. Landowners feared expropriation. Officers resented lost prestige. Church leaders warned that Spain was becoming godless. Monarchists whispered of betrayal. On the left, many felt the reforms did not go far enough. The Republic stood in the middle of a storm. In 1932, General José Sanjurjo attempted a coup. It failed. But the message was clear. The army was willing to intervene. Political violence became routine. Strikes, assassinations, church burnings, street battles between left-wing militias and right-wing paramilitaries. Spain's parliament became a battlefield of ideology. In 1933, right-wing parties won national elections. Many reforms were reversed. Left-wing workers felt betrayed. In 1934, miners in Asturias rose in open rebellion. The government sent in the army. The man who crushed the revolt was a little-known general named Francisco Franco. Thousands were killed. The wounds did not heal. 2 years later, in February 1936, elections returned a left-wing Popular Front coalition to power by a narrow margin. Allegations of fraud spread. Political assassinations escalated. Armed groups began preparing for confrontation. For much of the military and the right, the conclusion was already drawn. If they did not act, Spain would become a socialist or communist state. Across Spain, conspirators quietly coordinated. The organizer was General Emilio Mola. The symbolic figurehead was Sanjurjo, still in exile. Franco hesitated at first, calculating, cautious. But by July 1936, Franco committed. On July 17th, army units in Spanish Morocco revolted. The next day, the rebellion spread to mainland Spain. It was supposed to be a swift coup. It became a civil war. Spain fractured almost overnight. In some cities, soldiers seized control. In others, workers and loyal police crushed the uprising. Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, and much of the industrial East remained loyal to the Republic. Large parts of the countryside, conservative regions, and much of the north fell to the rebels. Neither side had achieved total victory. The country was now split in two. The rebels called themselves Nationalists. The government side became known as Republicans. But these labels hid enormous internal divisions. On the Republican side were moderate liberals who wanted a democratic republic, socialists who wanted a workers' state, communists aligned with Moscow, anti-Stalinist Marxists, and powerful anarchist movements who rejected government altogether. Many Republicans did not merely want to defeat the coup, they wanted to remake society. In Barcelona and parts of Aragon, factories were collectivized, land was seized, churches were burned, priests were killed. Traditional hierarchies collapsed almost overnight. For some, it felt like a social revolution. For others, it felt like civilization itself was collapsing. The nationalist side was more ideologically unified, though still diverse. Army officers, monarchists, Catholic conservatives, landowners, fascists from the Falange party, all believed they were fighting to save Spain from chaos, atheism, and Marxism. They did not fight to restore democracy. They fought to impose order. From the very beginning, terror became a weapon. In Republican areas, mobs executed priests, landowners, and suspected rightists. In nationalist zones, soldiers and militias executed union members, teachers, left-wing politicians, and anyone accused of disloyalty. People disappeared at night. Mass graves filled fields and roadsides. Neighbors denounced neighbors. The war was not just between armies, it was fought inside families, inside villages, inside consciences. One of the most critical early moments came in Morocco. Franco commanded the Army of Africa, Spain's best trained and most ruthless troops, including Spanish legionnaires and Moroccan regulares. But the Spanish Navy remained largely loyal to the Republic. Franco's army was trapped across the sea. Germany and Italy intervened. Transport planes began airlifting Franco's forces across the Strait of Gibraltar in the first large-scale military airlift in history. Within weeks, thousands of battle-hardened troops were on Spanish soil. The balance began to shift. In August 1936, Sanjurjo died in a plane crash while attempting to return from exile. Franco's rivals began disappearing one by one. By October, Franco was proclaimed Generalissimo and head of state. He had become the face of the nationalist cause. The first great test came at Madrid. Nationalist columns advanced toward the capital in the autumn of 1936, expecting a quick collapse. Madrid did not fall. Civilians built barricades, dug trenches, turned apartment buildings into fortresses. Volunteers arrived from around the world, writers, workers, students, idealists, forming the international brigades. Soviet tanks and aircraft appeared in Republican service. The city endured bombing, artillery fire, hunger, and fear. Madrid became a symbol. They shall not pass. The siege failed, but the war did not end. Foreign powers shaped the conflict in decisive ways. Germany and Italy openly supplied Franco with planes, tanks, artillery, and troops. Portugal opened its border. Britain and France declared non-intervention, banning arms sales to both sides. In practice, this policy strangled the Republic while doing little to stop Axis aid to the nationalists. The Soviet Union supplied the Republicans, but demanded political influence in return. Spain became a testing ground. German pilots practiced dive bombing. Italian units tested mechanized assaults. Soviet advisors experimented with armored warfare. The future of European war was being rehearsed. In 1937, Franco turned north. The Basque Country, Asturias, and Santander were cut off from the rest of Republican Spain. On April 26, 1937, German and Italian aircraft bombed the Basque town of Guernica. The town had little military value. It was market day. Civilians filled the streets. High explosives shattered buildings. Incendiaries set the ruins ablaze. Hundreds were killed.